Dead Space 3 has some of the best combat and world design in modern gaming. The addition of co-op and the new setting on the frozen planet of Tal Volantis freshens up the old Dead Space formula, and the new weapon and resource system make it extremely replayable. But Dead Space 3 is also filled with fetch quests, backtracking, and some truly forced storytelling. Taken as an entire package, Dead Space 3 makes a ton of mistakes. But here's the thing, I still love playing it. Let me explain. Dead Space 3 catches up with Isaac Clarke, the world's unluckiest engineer, as he attempts to find his ex-girlfriend Ellie. You know, the girl who got her eye gouged out in Dead Space 2, but now her eye's, like, totally fine. We immediately meet John Carver, a new playable co-op character, who helps Isaac blast his way through a unitologist uprising and a freshly unleashed necromorph horde before heading off to space. Dead Space 3's greatest strength is its atmosphere. You'll be hard-pressed to find a better-looking game this late in the console generation. Visually, it captures the gritty spirit of classic 80s sci-fi and horror movies. It has a real sense of place and physicality to it, from the high-velocity space jumps to the frozen planet of Tal Volantis. This is thanks in large measure to the top-notch sound design. The same can't be said for the story. At its most serviceable, it moves the action along at a good clip. At its worst, it's forced and props up its entire thesis on a nearly implausible scenario. It also strains to offer any real reason to care about Isaac. Compared to the heady schizophrenia he endured and overcame in the first two games, this is a sedated Isaac. In fact, Carver's story is much more interesting, even though it's not entirely original. Beyond that, there's a fairly unbelievable love triangle, the marker narrative feels heavy-handed, and characters conveniently figure out alien secrets from hundreds of years ago just to move each chapter forward. Considering the elegance and sophistication of the world and sound design, it's too bad the story seems so cobbled together. When it comes to combat, Dead Space 3 absolutely gets things right. Dismembering limbs, tentacles, and other gross necromorph appendages are the headshots of Dead Space 3. Strategically picking apart enemies with a combination of well-placed plasma blasts and stasis shots turn what would otherwise be average shooter combat into a rich tactical exercise in time and resource management. You're constantly faced with a series of decisions. What weapon should you use? Should you conserve ammo and use kinesis? This extends to the weapon upgrade mechanics as well, bringing with it a whole new set of decisions of its own. Should I craft a tungsten torque bar or make a modification for my weapon? Should I upgrade my rig or craft extra med packs? All of these elements combine to create the Dead Space 3 gameplay loop. You're either searching and collecting, defending and surviving, or upgrading your gear at all times. Overall, co-op is implemented really well, and the game responds with the addition of a second player applying more and tougher enemies, and gives the plotline some room to explore Carver's themes along with extra dialogue and some optional missions outside of Isaac's arc. Playing with a friend makes things more manageable in some of the tougher encounters as well, especially on higher difficulties, and the help is definitely welcomed. For everything Dead Space 3 gets right in its world building and combat, it struggles with in pacing and gameplay flow, eventually reducing Dead Space 3 to a list of chores and errands built around heavy backtracking. This goes hand in hand with the forced story elements. Almost everything you do in Dead Space 3 involves getting 3 of some widget or following 6 steps to fix some old thing that's broken. One bad thing happens after another, nothing works, and poor Isaac is playing the handyman with the heart along the way. So remember when I said I still loved playing Dead Space 3, despite all of my many complaints? Here's why. The combat system and the world that Dead Space 3 presents is so expertly built and well realized that I found myself overlooking the many objections I have. I largely credit this to the New Game Plus mode, which focuses solely on combat, collection, upgrades, and increased difficulty. Playing through multiple times, I realized that I love Dead Space 3 for the same reasons I love playing Diablo. Dead Space 3 is absolutely better the second and third times through, because at that point it's not about the forced story and the bad chore list, it's really just about building up the most powerful, best outfitted Isaac you can imagine. It's here that the Dead Space 3 gameplay loop truly shines. Collection, combat, upgrading. So much so that I was able to look past its many shortcomings. Dead Space 3 is a great example of how some truly bad decisions can bring an otherwise exceptional experience down, but doesn't necessarily ruin it. Dead Space 3 is a bit of a guilty pleasure then, with a sizable list of reasons not to like it, but I still do. When I play it, I curse the errand running and I scoff at just how much can go wrong for one poor engineer. But if you're anything like me, you'll love it just the same. For the full written review and lots more on Dead Space 3, check out IGN.